A brain with goals will focus on thriving, ask empowering questions, and pivot to what's possible rather than what is or has been. Words of wisdom spoken by actress, author, and playwright Tina Lifford. Welcome to In My Own Words, presented by AARP Atlanta. I'm your host and AARP Georgia State Director, Deborah Tyler Horton. For the next 30 minutes, I'll be talking to Tina Lifford about brain health and managing stress, some of the priorities for AARP and its membership. Tina, can you
Deborah.
believe it? It's been since 2019 since we've had an opportunity to come together.
Yes, yes.
And it's so great to see you.
It is wonderful to see you. It's wonderful to see you just because you're a wonderful human being, and it's wonderful to see you on the other side of, well, almost on the other side of what's been a very, very different world.
Yes,
right?
it has. Yes, it has. Just think back in 2019 when you and I were together, you had just released your book.
Yes. Yes.
And let me make sure I have The Little Book of Big Lies.
Yeah.
That Forbes personal development book for 2021.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I woke up one morning and in my email box there was just all of these messages that were letting me know that my book had been chosen as one of Forbes's 21 must-read books for 2021.
Yes, and just think, after that, the pandemic, the world changed, our lives changed.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit how your role in the book and in your inner fitness project,
Yeah.
how that was influenced in all that was going on with the pandemic.
Yeah, life is a funny thing, right? We do our thing, we prepare, we are moving down whatever path our heart is trying to pull us down. And the work that I've been doing with Inner Fitness it's decades in the making, right? And then I was able to actually capture that work in the Little Book of Big Lies. What I did not know was that the entire world was about to move into a mindset that would put wellness front and center in everyone's life.
Yes.
And the thing that is exciting about what happened for the Inner Fitness Project, which is my initiative, what happened for the Inner Fitness Project was we were prepared without knowing it for all of the people who found themselves at home and found themselves in a sort of fog, in a disconnect from themselves, with all the busyness that had stopped, and people were, isolated or quarantined. A lot of people, two things happened. A lot of people either discovered that they had become disconnected from themselves, living a busy, busy, busy life, or there were a lot of people who knew that they needed to stop and be with themselves, but they hadn't allowed themselves that time. They hadn't listened to that still small voice inside of them. And so the pandemic said, all right, this is the time. And many women leaned in and said, I need community. I know that I need to be with myself in new ways. And the Inner Fitness Project was there. Our Wellness Wednesday opportunity was there. And it has just been more than gratifying to watch women and now men
Yes.
find their way into conversations with themselves that restore and heal and expand.
The pandemic changed our lives.
Yeah.
You know, it made us step back, take a look, think about how we were living,
Yep.
how we were working. I know I did. And, you know, one of AARP's main focuses for many years has been on brain health.
Yeah.
One of the top things that came to the top of the surface for everyone was isolation.
Yep.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you dealt with that, how you were able to communicate with your friends and your family and during this time in those early days of the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. And the pandemic years were full of a lot of wonderful discoveries for us at the Inner Fitness Project. So discovery number one is separation isn't isolation. When you can actually be in an environment, and in our case it was a Zoom environment, but what every single human being yearns for is a place where they feel seen and heard. And if that's not within your family, being seen and heard is just a necessary need of the human spirit. And yes, it's much better to be able to touch you, but it is equally good for you to be in a community, even if it was in that frame, being able to speak to how you feel, feeling heard about that, feeling understood, and feeling encouraged. Yes. You know, I think that one of the important discoveries, I mean, you know, we've heard it in different adages or proverbs or whatever, you know, that this is just a moment in time. But when you are actually experiencing new things, and those new things felt challenging, and at that time there was so much confusion around the pandemic and COVID-19 and what does that mean and where are we going, and that creates, if not fear, it certainly creates anxiousness. And community, just to have some place where you can say, I'm feeling out of sorts.
Yes.
You know, I'm sad because I can't go see my mother. Just having a place where you can say that and experience people being with you in that actually eliminates a sense of isolation, or at least it adds to your experience the benefit of community.
So you talked about the technology.
Yeah.
Became front and center for all of us.
Yep.
Many of us are long distance from our families, but the communication was so important during this time. And so the use of technology. You know, my mom is 96 years old, and she's on her iPhone, and she says taking pictures and communicating with us, and this kept her from being isolated from the extended family.
Yeah.
This is so, so important. Now tell us a little bit, how did this work for you for work? You know, here you are, you know, you're an entertainer and an artist, and how did you communicate with your colleagues?
Yeah.
How did that work?
You know, one of the other discoveries, and I think we knew this, but when you've got an entire society, if not world, going through difficult times, scary times, entertainment becomes really important. And I think that the entertainment industry had a sense of purpose, not just, you know, grinding out content, but had a sense of purpose. I know that Warner Brothers did, and Ava DuVernay, who is our executive producer, she and Oprah, along with Warner Brothers, they felt that it was really important that Queen Sugar continue to be a place of comfort, particularly during the pandemic. So we went down, meaning we stopped shooting, I think it was in March of 2020, right? When the pandemic hit. We all stopped working. We were actually in New Orleans. We had started working. We had put one episode of that season, season 6, in the can, and then the plug got pulled. Right. So we all left New Orleans, flew back to our homes, and we waited. Along with the rest of
the world, right?
Rest of the world, we waited, and but we knew that they were busy trying to come up with protocols, safe protocols that would allow us to be able to continue to, finish out the season and get it on the air. And I actually, it's the last 2 years working on the set of Queen Sugar has been such an act of ingenuity and personal care, because they had protocols like, aside from being tested almost daily in the beginning, we went from daily to 3 times a week for the last 2 years. They put us in pods. In the first year, they put us in pods so that we literally would be shooting the show only with the actors who were in our pod. So that cut down on a number of people who would have to be unmasked, because the actors don't get masks, right? Yeah. Everyone else had to be masked. And then we had to trust that our crew and our production company had our back. So everybody was masked. There was definitely, that 6 to 10 to 12 feet worth of distance. We had a COVID officer on set the entire time, from the moment anyone hits that set to the moment we leave. There was COVID surveillance. If someone actually tested positive, that person anonymously was removed from the community, and Queen Sugar never had a shutdown. Whereas a number of other productions in New Orleans, and I know elsewhere, their entire shows were shut down because their protocols didn't save them from the viral nature of COVID. It was extraordinary. I felt very supported by our executive producers.
So a lot of taking care of our folks, taking care of the staff, the team. Let's talk about that taking care piece.
All right.
During part of this brain health and being healthy is exercise. And what do we hear everybody say? I don't have time for. Talk about how you make time for this important piece of our brain health, being exercising.
Yeah, Deborah, it's such a great question, and it's an important conversation, because we human beings, we behave very irrationally, don't we?
Tell the truth now. Go ahead and tell the truth.
We human beings want what we want, and we don't want the consequences of our choices. I don't know how to say it any better than, of course, AARP is saying it, and, just the medical industry is saying it. But I will say that everything we read says that physical fitness has an impact. I don't even want to, impact doesn't even seem large enough. Physical fitness is essential to our health because physical fitness gets our body to physiologically operate in ways that support and protect health in every area of our lives. And when it comes to the brain, I know it doesn't necessarily track for some people, but when you are exercising, you are actually sending oxygen to the brain. There are protective mechanisms that are being activated through the act of exercise. So for us, it looks like we're just sweating, or it's just this unwanted 15, 30, 45 minutes to an hour's worth of effort. But that effort is absolutely running through our entire body in ways that are benefiting systems that we cannot see.
So you're saying, I don't want to hear this anymore about I don't have time.
Well,
we got to make time.
Oh, my sense of humor is like, make the time or just don't be here. I mean, it really is that sort of dramatic, for the people who are sitting on their couch. Just if you don't go out and walk in nature, walk back and forth to the kitchen, walk back and forth to the restroom, go to your garage and come back.
Park a little further when you go to the store.
Park a little further when you go to the store.
Yes.
Because the body doesn't really care what exercise you do. It needs you to do something.
Yes. And Tina, AARP does a lot, we focus on the 50 plus. And we're always putting out information about how important exercise and the things that you need to do to keep the brain healthy. But the reality is, this is not just a 50 plus.
No.
This is everyone.
Well, and our health is being determined from the moment we're born, or actually conception. Because there are genetics and heredity that is playing, a role. The sooner we start to build the habit of exercise, the better chance that we will have that exercise, that habit, will be supporting us to the end of our lives.
Yes, and we're living longer.
Much longer.
So we have to pay attention to this.
I heard it's not a statistic, but it was a scientific statement that said the person who will live in the future to 130 has probably already been born. That's a huge statement.
Yes.
When you talk about how we have looked at longevity and lifespan up until now, right? So the idea that someone could live to 130 makes us have to rethink everything, and health is at the top of the list.
Yes. Tina, we were talking earlier. My mom is 96.
Yeah.
And she goes up and down the steps.
Good for her.
She goes down the stairs to do her laundry, and she's in the kitchen cooking. This is what's going to keep her living.
Yeah.
Her brain is strong. She's using the iPad and the
Good
technology.
Yes.
And that's what's going to make a difference for her longevity and her brain health.
Yeah. So one of the things that I love about what you just said about your mom, there's so many instructive pieces in that. Number one, that old adage, use it or lose it. So the fact that your mom is still able to go up and down steps at 96 is because she kept challenging herself to go up and down steps, right? So for those listening, we have to use it. We have to, take time and squat, bend over and touch. If you can't touch your toes, touch your knees. But the more we effort, the more we are capable. And if we don't effort, we become stiff, and that stiffness then becomes a stiffness of spirit, and then we don't want to do anything.
Absolutely.
Right? And we just grow old. The other thing that you said about your mom that I absolutely love is this digital age is here. And we will stay youthful if we stay connected to the times. And I'm not talking about to the news. I'm talking about, being able to navigate your life the way in which the world is now operating. So to be able to work an iPad or a cell phone is crucial, not just because it connects you, but because it forces the brain to work in new ways.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. But let's talk about this technology a minute, and a part of the managing our mental health when it comes to technology and in the environment that we live in. So I have an iPad, and I have an iPhone, and I have an iWatch, and I have a laptop. How do we disconnect to help that mental health piece?
Well, now you're talking my stuff. Because I do think it's important, Deborah, that we, at least at the Inner Fitness Project, we intentionally make a distinction between wellness and well-being. And here's the distinction that we work with. Wellness is absolutely primo. Wellness is about the body. Most of the time when we talk wellness, we are talking about ways that we must physiologically and functionally take care of ourselves, right? The piece that can get lost in that is that when it comes to well-being is more of the stuff inside. And the Inner Fitness Project literally focuses on the beliefs, the thoughts, the feelings, because it's that environment that actually begins to dictate the choices that we make. When you feel better about yourself in general, meaning you feel that you have a sense of innate worth. One of the definitions that we work with at the Inner Fitness Project is that every single human being is innately creative, resilient, empowered to make choices, whole and worthy. So if we see ourselves innately as, creative, resilient, empowered to choose whole and worthy, then when we meet with difficulty, we get to meet with that difficulty with a sense of ourselves, with a sense of our rightness, as opposed to the habit of the human mind to focus on what's wrong. So when it comes to taking care of self, we absolutely have to do all of the functional things, because the body is how we move through the world. But the inner self, our thoughts, our feelings, and our beliefs, that's how we experience the world. And we can experience it better if, in fact, we spend more time with ourselves internally so that we can sort through and make stronger that sense of self.
So I want to say to those who are listening to us right now, put the technology away.
Yeah.
Take some time
Yeah.
for self. Take some time to walk, to exercise, to think about those things and disconnect.
Yeah.
Figure it out,
Yeah.
because it's the most important thing for our mental health, to disconnect. Now, before we go, I just have to ask, okay, I need to know what's going on with Aunt Vi. I know this is the last season, and I know you can't tell us any secrets about the last season, but tell us a little bit just about how you felt playing that role and how it impacted your life.
Yeah. So, both Queen Sugar and Aunt Vi have been a gift, just an absolute gift. And Aunt Vi is truly an amazing experience, because here this woman over 60 is, and for the first time on television, we have a woman over 60 who is fully expressed. She's got a 360-degree life. You know, she's got aspirations, a sense of self. She has struggles that she has to deal with, and ways in which she has to look at herself to become that better iteration of herself. She's got a man and a relationship that is rich and full of goodness and trust, you know, and they tend to that relationship in the ways necessary to maintain it. She's got family that she's committed to, and she discovers late in life, or if people are going to be living to be 130, then 60 is midlife. And in her midlife, she finally is able to realize her own talents and bring those to the forefront and experience the richness of expressing all of who she is. She happens to be African American, in this case, but Aunt Vi lives in every single family, in every single ethnicity, and I am so honored that I get to bring her to the fore.
And we love it. We just love it.
And I just have to say, a woman over 60, in the name of Oprah Winfrey, was in the position to make this happen.
That's right.
And then Ava DuVernay, who has such a love for her mother and such a love for our culture, also was able to say, this is a woman. This is a woman we all know, and it's time that we see her so that all these women out here can see themselves and enjoy who they are.
Thank you for your time, your energy, and all that you're doing for not just the women, but for the men too, about their taking care of ourselves and remembering that, who we are and what we do is important. And something you said along the line really hit me, and that is being the model and the example for the generations to come as well.
Yeah. Deborah, it's always a pleasure to hang out with you. The work that you and AARP is doing it's culture changing and so important and significant. And it's wonderful to hang out with people who are doing things that are important.
Thank you so much.